Now, PwC's Global Power and Utilities Survey indicates that many in the industry expect the existing power utility business model to transform or even be unrecognizable in the period between now and 2030. This due to, amongst others, technology changes and a new breed of customer. Joining us for a closer look at the findings is Anjali Hoekstra, PwC Power and Utilities Leader for Southern Africa. Anjali, thank you so much for making the time to join us. Perhaps give us a bit of a background as to why are the traditional business models that are currently in use in power utilities set to become redundant?
Yeah, thank you very much, Nasipo, for having me here tonight. Why we see this amazing change like in power utility business models is because of a number of disruptive type of forces. The one major force that we see is a distributed type of power model that is taking place. So, and we can see that as well, and we heard your previous speaker as well about, you know, all the IPPs coming online, etc. But we're also seeing that actually like the customers, which will also start generating their own power. We call them prosumers. So customers that are actually producing their own power. And that all comes online onto a grid, you know, which is very difficult then to balance. And that is one of the major driving forces. Another one of these forces is like really difficult type of technology changes. For example, what we can see is like smart grid and smart metering coming in place, like solar energy becoming available far more cheaply and affordably. Energy efficiency is a major impact too. And so those are all types of forces that the CEOs that we surveyed in our power utility survey, which is 53 of them, that they also saw as like major forces that are driving a change in the power utility business model.
Let's look at Africa comparatively. You know, when you speak about a decentralized system and pro-consumers, immediately one starts to think of the challenges that, you know, consistently litter the journey towards privatization in the African context. Say for Nigeria, we've made very little progress in terms of getting along on that privatization road. From your view, how does Africa compare with the other regions, and are we any closer to this pro-consumer decentralized system that we seem to be headed towards?
Yeah, to me, like we're coming a lot closer to that prosumer type of system or distributed power generation type of system, but in a little bit in a different way. We don't necessarily need like a liberalization of like the whole energy sector for that. We can do it in different types of ways.
Let's perhaps latch on to the question of cost. I mean, Cornelius speaking earlier was, you know, he was going on and beleaguering the cost of electricity. This new business models that are likely to transform the industry, how do they translate for the consumer? Does this mean electricity is going to get cheaper for us, or are we likely to be paying more?
That is a very difficult question, because there's different aspects of it. Because like the market will get more open because we're getting like more generation capacity online. The problem is with some of the generation capacity is also intermittent type of capacity. And that actually drives up cost as well from managing the grid type of perspective. But on the other side, if we get to a prosumer type of model where we see like, you know, like solar is so much more affordable, for example, for like consumers, then they can decide, do they want to have the generation taken off the grid, or are they generating their own, you know, capacity? Specifically in Africa context as well, you know, I think, you know, based on like that we still have like big rural areas where there's lots of people without electricity, it is actually like also important to look at these type of off-grid type of solutions too, and not necessarily connect them to the grid, to ensure like that people get access to electricity.
Let me perhaps play a little bit of devil's advocate here. I mean, we speak about access to electricity. The statistic we heard in the conversation with Cornelius is that in Southern Africa in particular, less than 5% of the rural community is connected to any sort of grid. With this new model, and I'm hoping it's not innovation for the sake of innovation, does it necessarily translate into increased access? Are we going to be able to shift this 5% to a significantly much bigger number?
if we need to answer that question, then I think it's very important to have a look at the role that government still is playing and needs to play in getting these people connected to the grid. Not necessarily to the grid, but also to off-grid type of solutions, so get them electricity in the end. So there you need to look at different models where still I think subsidies, is quite important, to take it forward. So it's very different from like if we look at Europe and the US and that, like our survey participants too, where they're coming from.
Perhaps let's latch on to this government question that you raised. What would be the strongest recommendation from your end about the type of policy direction we should be seeing in Africa if we want to make sure that we are not left behind in this transformative process?
From a policy perspective, it's very much important that there is a policy that governments will keep to and that investors have confidence in. And I think that is the most important thing. And then also like to make it also like affordable for investors, to actually put these type of off-grid solutions that are necessary in Africa to put them online.